Okay, last but not the least, we have our final presenter, who is Miss Fumie Shibuya. She is from Japan and she is a student under the supervision of Professor Akira Uno. Miss Fumie Shibuya is going to be presenting her research on the adaptation of double deficit hypothesis on reading and spelling difficulty in Japanese-speaking children. It's a study on third grade children. So, Ms. Fumiya, please.
Hello, everyone. Now I'm starving, so finish my presentation. Let's enjoy lunch together. So now I start my presentation. Today, I would like to talk about the adaptation of double deficit hypothesis to Japanese-speaking children with kana and kanji reading difficulty. First of all, I try to introduce myself. I came from Japan, there, and I'm in Singapore, here. To tell the truth, I was born in Hokkaido, northern part of Japan, so snow country. My hometown has huge snow in every winter. So now I'm in Singapore. I could understand the snowman's mind. I'm melting every minute. And in Japan, I'm speech therapist. And in Japan, speech therapist is speech, language, hearing therapist. So we have to rehabilitation for aphasia, dysphagia, hearing loss, of course, developmental dyslexia too. I work at hospital for 8 years for old people with aphasia and dysphagia. And now I work at dyslexia center. And I'm a graduate student too, and belonging to Professor Uno's laboratory. But recently very busy. So almost I live here. I forgot my apartment. So let's talk back about dyslexia. Prevalence of dyslexia in the world. First, English, 5 to 17.5%. And Italian and German, more infrequent. Arabic, only 1%. Because English alphabet has many sounds, as you know. So this is big problem to dyslexia kids, and for me too. And we call these kind of languages opaque language. And Italian, German, Arabic language is easy to read because their alphabet has one sound, almost one sound. So we call this kind of language transparent language. So, and then let's see the Japanese writing system. We have two kinds of writing system. One is kanji. In ancient time, kanji came from China. But we have own language already, and we have sounds, and kanji has original sounds too. So in Japan now, we have many sounds with kanji. For example, this kanji usually read hon. It means book. But when I read moto, it means cause. And when I count pencil, 1 pencil, 2 pencil, 3 pencil, I read this kanji, pon, hon, bon. For example, 1本, 2本, 3本. so changeable. But kana is easy to read. One letter, one sound. And two kind of kana. And this one is hiragana. Usually explain about Japanese original thing. And this one is katakana, explain about something came from foreign country. So, upper side in hiragana, Singapore, and in katakana, Singapore. Same sound. How about the prevalence of these writing system? According to Professor Uno's study, hiragana prevalence is 0.2%, katakana is 1.4%, kanji is 6.9%. Because kanji has many sounds, so similar to opaque language, it's like English. Kana has one sound, so similar to transparent language, it's like Italian, German, Arabic. So previously, when researchers compared to these kind of opaque language and transparent language, they had to use the similar task because different language. But in Japanese, we have different writing system in one language, so we can compare these kind of opaque and transparent writing system in same time by exactly same task. Before I try to tell you about my study, I have to talk about another story. And long time, underlying causes of developmental dyslexia, phonological awareness deficit hypothesis is strong hypothesis. But this hypothesis has not explained all aspects of reading disabilities. In 1999, Wolf and Bowers proposed the double deficit hypothesis. Not only phonological awareness, but also naming speed deficit is core factor of developmental dyslexia. And Wolf and Bowers said, and double deficit group too. And double deficit group has both phonological awareness deficit and naming speed deficit. And double deficit group has the most severe reading difficulty. Since 1999, many countries' researchers try to examine about the DDH. In the study of these languages, children could be classified into 3 kinds of groups of the double deficit hypothesis. But severity of double deficit group, Portuguese, Greek, the result of these countries' study consistent with the double deficit hypothesis. But in German, Finnish study, the DD group has not the most severe reading difficulty. So, purpose of this study, to clarify whether the Japanese-speaking children can be classified into 3 deficit groups based on the double deficit hypothesis or not. Second, whether reading difficulty of the double deficit group is the most severe in the 3 type of deficit group. Third, whether the prevalence of poor readers are different between kana and kanji or not. So, kanji, similar to opaque language. kana is similar to transparent language, we selected the two type of study, one from English, one from German study. And both study, they used intelligent task, phonological awareness task, naming speed task, and reading task. And they used different criteria. So we find similar task and used two type of criteria. Our participants is 94 children at 3rd grade. All children came from local public school and they speak Japanese as first language. And this is our task. Nonverbal intelligence task, we used Raven's colored progressive matrices test. Detail about this kind of task, first presenter of this session, Lani, told you detail about this task, so I will omit the detail. And children have to choose the correct one from 1 to 6. And as vocabulary task, we used standardized comprehension test of abstract words. And this one, so therapist said which one, for example, which one is happiness? Can you answer this question? In this lecture center, almost all children can choose the correct answer. That one, marriage picture. But their parents never agree with that answer. I don't know why, but. And then visual cognition task. We used Ray of Three's complex figure test. And as Lani said, children have to copy this picture. After that, immediately they draw again without this picture. And 30 minutes later, they have to draw again without this picture. It's very difficult. And as naming speed task, we used RAM. In Japan, we usually use this kind of RAM. Children have to read and name as quickly as possible. For example, 2 cat, 7 sheep, 3 foot, 6 cat. Maybe I have a problem, but difficult. And phonological awareness task, we used word and non-word repetition in reverse order. 10 kinds of words we used. And as reading task, we used 28 words, kana words reading, and 16 non-words reading, and about 180 words paragraph reading. And children have to read as quickly as possible, and we count the time and the accuracy. And as reading kanji reading, we used 126 number of kanji words. So we count the correct number of children's answer. And this is the criteria of two types of study. Pink one is from English study. Below 30 percentile is deficit. Above 50 percentile, not deficit. And green one, the German criteria, they use the 20 percentile cutoff value. Below 20 percentile, they have a deficit. Above 20 percentile, no deficit. So we have to analyze two ways. This is the result. We could classify Japanese children into 3 deficit groups. The yellow yellow box, the Sanchez and Bowers English Studies criteria, and below, green box, Vima et al.'s criteria. And let's see the severity. When we used the English studies criteria, red bar is double deficit group, blue is phonological deficit, and yellow is naming speed deficit. And red arm is a sign of significant difference. So we need the two arms from red bar to blue and yellow bar. But phonological awareness task and run task, red bar has only one arm. And reading task is two. And Kana word reading test, there are no significant difference. And the number of the errors, there are no significant difference. In German criteria, there are no significant difference in phonological awareness task. Run task is only one red arm. And reading task, there are no significant difference. And during this analysis, we found the Nobel group. By the criteria of Sanchez and Bowers, we found 25 children, and in criteria of Beamer, 4 children, they drop out from the DGH framework. So I analyzed these kids' data. There are weak visual cognition ability. And these children, because from their cutoff value, so Sanchez and Bowers, they below 30 percentile is deficit, above 50 percentile deficit. But yellow box children drop out from the DGH framework, but they have the reading difficulty. And in Wieman et al.'s criteria, 20 percentile, below 20 percentile is deficit, but both phonological awareness and run task above 30 percentile is not deficit group. So the 20% and 30 percentile children drop out from DGH framework. So in future, we have to think about the cutoff value. It's big problem for kids. And at last, the result of comparing and kana and kanji. This one is the by criteria of Sanchez and Bowers. Wait a minute. When we use criteria of Sanchez and Bowers, only DD group, double deficit group, showed the reading difficulty, both kanji and kana. On the other hand, both single deficit group has no poor readers. Their criteria may be insufficient to classify 2 subgroups of Japanese children with reading difficulty. And this result is when we used by criteria of Wimers. But we could not find significant prevalence difference among DDH group, both kana and kanji. So we have to further study is required in the future. In conclusion, we could classify it into Japanese children. We could classify Japanese children into 3 deficit groups. But severity, double deficit group did not show the most severe reading difficulty. So our study, so partially consistent with the DDH. And we have to think about dyslexia. Not only phonological awareness, naming speed deficit, but also other kind of cognitive ability affect to dyslexia. And Professor Uno reported the poor reader who has only visual cognition disability in Japanese children. So in future, we will examine about more participants and think about these things. Thank you very much for your kind attention.